Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, it's Tuesday, March 6th, 2018, and you know what that means. It's time to get nerdy, y'all. Welcome to episode number 61 of Two Nerds in a Pod, the nerdiest gaming podcast in the galaxy. I'm Lam, also known as Mr. Nice Guy, and I got my comrade in gaming commentary here with me, the miggity Mack, also known as Maction. Mack, what's up, buddy? Tell me something good, man. How you been?
Well, since I've, before we started, I kind of bored you with all the stuff that was going not well. So something that's going good. Is it bad that I can't think of anything?
That's terrible. No. Stop playing games, Mac. You know there's something good you can say.
Yeah, so,
You could think of something good, man.
I am struggling, man. Okay. I think I've got something. So, earlier today, Mrs. the Mack and I, we were having a conversation about something very not awesome. And at the end of it, we were talking about, bucket list kind of stuffs. And one of the things was I was like, I would love for us to finish playing through Super Mario Brothers 3 together. And she was like, why wait? Let's do that tonight.
That's
so
up,
with any
and you
luck,
streamed it and you didn't tell me. Is that what happened?
No. Nope. Didn't do. We were kind of busy this afternoon. But what I will say is that Mrs. the Mack and I are going to play through Super Mario Brothers 3 together at some point, and she is all on board with that. And it doesn't even have to be an end-of-the-world type scenario. So that is one super positive thing. Mrs. the Mack is amazing, as if we didn't already know that. But yeah, just another example of how amazing Mrs. the Mack is.
Dude, that's exciting, man. So you don't know when you're going to do it, but it'll be sometime in the near future. Is that right?
Yeah, sure.
Dude, I'm excited to see it, man. I'm excited to see it. Well, on my end, comedy's going really well, as always. I got a bunch of shows booked for March and April. And yeah, man, things are going well there. Did 2 sets last night, and they both went really well, man. I've been working out my video game material. Trying to make the argument that video games do not cause violence, but also doing it in a funny way. And it's coming along really, really well, man. So,
ooh, well, Mr. Nice Guy, the legalese segment this afternoon might provide some fun fodder.
Dude, I'm excited for it. Maybe it'll give me some more tags for my joke. And on that note, Mac, I say we do what we do best, and we hop right into the gaming news, my friend. What do you think?
Absolutely. Let's do it.
Let's do it. Once again, welcome to those of you who are here for the live show. Episode number 61 of Two Nerds in a Pod. We are 61% of the way to 100 episodes, which is very exciting. So let's check out some gaming news. Let's start with this one. This one got me kind of excited because it involves a game that I've always wanted to play, but just never had the time to get to. This is on GameSpot.com. It says, last week, Diablo fans got excited when the game's publisher, Blizzard, appeared to hint that a version of the game would be coming to Nintendo Switch. The company later quashed rumors by saying, quote, "We can assure you we're not that clever," unquote. Now a new report claims that the long-running action RPG series is coming to Nintendo's hybrid console after all. Eurogamer says its sources have informed the site that yes, Diablo is coming to Switch. Specifically, it will be a port of Diablo 3 that makes its way to the device. The report does not state whether Diablo 3's Reaper of Souls and Rise of the Necromancer expansions would be included in the port and does not mention a release date. An official statement is still months away, the site says. Mac, we've reached a point in games where nothing is ever a surprise anymore. You know what I mean? We hear about everything before it's going to happen. It's very, very rare that a game is announced without us already knowing about it. Have you played Diablo 3? It seems like the type of game that would be right up your alley.
I haven't played Diablo 3. However, I have played Diablos 1 and 2.
What'd you think of them?
I enjoyed them for what they were. They were okay. Much better when you had friends playing along.
How do you think they would translate to a portable console? Because I'm assuming you played them on PC.
Yes, I did play them on PC. I think they would probably translate pretty well to a portable console, but only because now, having not played 3, I'm just going off of my knowledge of 1 and 2.
Sure.
1 and 2 would probably translate pretty well, especially with that gamepad of theirs. I
that
know that
gamepad of theirs. You say it like it's a foreign thing that you've never used before. You have more consoles than I do. Albeit
be
retro
that as it
consoles,
may.
but you own a lot of gaming consoles with that super convenient, very precise D-pad thing that you're talking about.
Be that as it may, I know that there have been ports of Diablo 2, for example, to console as well. I think Diablo 3 saw, current gen console releases, so I
Diablo
imagine
3
it would
did,
probably
yeah.
work out fairly all right.
Yeah, I
And
mean,
and especially where you're talking about the Nintendo Switch being the hybrid portable console, I think it would probably work out reasonably well.
you know what I've realized about the Switch? I feel
Hmm.
like the portable version of the Switch is good for bite-sized experiences or for games where you can get in and get out with a match really quickly. I don't like playing The Legend of Zelda portably. I really don't. The screen is a decent size, but I want to play that on a big screen and sit back and relax. I don't want to be holding my arms up while I'm laying in bed trying to look at the screen and, precisely shoot my bow and arrow. I can set the Switch up and play Mario Kart. That's a 5-minute match on the tablet, but I can't play for long periods of time on the tablet. Now that said, Diablo 3 seems like it might be an exception. Like maybe that's the type of game I can do some dungeons. Because isn't it kind of like a Gauntlet Legends type of game, dungeon crawl, collecting loot and stuff?
Yeah, there are definitely some parallels.
Yeah, so I don't know. We'll see. Diablo 3 is always a game I've wanted to get into. Maybe it being portable will get me into it. So we'll see if it's a rumor or if it is indeed true. Moving on to our next news story of the day. Let's talk about Halo for a little bit. This story is from GameSpot as well. Now, if you guys follow the show, you know that earlier in the year, the makers of Halo did say that there was going to be some new Halo stuff this year, and people assumed it meant Halo 6. Maybe this is what we're talking about. This article says, while no new Halo games have been announced, those looking to learn more about the main character, Master Chief, now have something to look forward to this year. Microsoft announced today Halo Collateral Damage, a new 3-part miniseries book that shines a light on Chief, quote, during some of his exploits in the Covenant War, unquote. Halo Collateral Damage follows the Master Chief and Blue Team as they are deployed by the UNSC to an unstable colony world. I'm not going to read the whole description, but it looks like there's some new Halo books coming. Mac, do you read I mean, I know you read books, but do you read books about your favorite video game characters? Is that your thing, or are you not into that?
I try to when the opportunity presents itself. For example, Archie Comics has a comic book series about Mega Man that I have on occasion been able to read. But I can't think of that many books that are written about video games that I like, especially the lore and background. So I would if there was some of that available for games that I prefer, but I'm afraid that not a lot of people are interested in the lore of these games that I am. I don't think.
Yeah, and honestly, I've never really been into this type of thing. I like comic books. I like video game related books, but I don't know how much I like this type of thing. Anyway, this comes out June 6th for those of you who are interested. For you Halo fanatics, this next news story deals with one of the most popular games in the world right now. It actually comes from Forbes.com. And it says Fortnite is dominating the gaming industry in almost every way right now, including one all-important metric, Twitch interest. According to metrics from Sully Gnome, which tracks Twitch viewership, Fortnite is now consistently the most viewed and streamed game on Twitch, besting even the likes of eternal staples League of Legends, CSGO, Overwatch, and its own rival PUBG. Fortnite is besting pretty much all the games at all times during prime streaming time, other than occasions where something like Overwatch League play or a Dota 2 tournament may cause it to be eclipsed momentarily. It has created streaming superstars out of players like Tyler Ninja Blevins, who regularly draws tens of thousands of viewers to his channel and is reportedly making hundreds of thousands of dollars a month from his 100K Twitch subscribers and his sky-high viewership. As I write this, I'm watching 11,000 people stare at his blank streaming soon screen, which should be some indication just how absurdly popular he is right now as a Fortnite streamer. So Mac, now, not to put pressure on you, man, But I know, and I know that you have a lot going on. But have you gotten to check out Fortnite yet?
Nope, I have not checked out Fortnite yet.
No, it's all good, bro. I get it. You're busy. I totally respect it. It is free, and there is cross-play between PS4. That said, I know you have a lot going on. But I would say if you get a chance, just download it. Don't even play it. Just download it. So it's there when we want to do Friday Night Fortnite, if we decide to make that a thing. So we'll move on from there. I think just to kind of give some background for people who may not be super familiar with Fortnite, it's free to play and it's a really quality game. To me, that's just a recipe for success. If you look at a lot of the top streamed games on Twitch, Dota 2, League of Legends, Hearthstone, Heroes of the Storm, to a lesser extent, a lot of those games are free to play games with microtransactions and other ways for the companies to profit, and they are well made. So that makes for the ideal Twitch experience. It's accessible to everyone who has a PC or gaming console. And so, I don't know, it makes it better. Free-to-play games are good. More free-to-play games that are quality would be a great thing. Let's talk about everyone's favorite game to hate, Call of Duty. This is on GameInformer.com. It says, Kotaku reports that this year's Call of Duty game, confirmed by Activision in their last earnings call with investors, is exceedingly likely to be the fourth game in the Black Ops series. The news site confirms with their own sources, as well as this suspicious logo, worn by Houston Rockets point guard James Harden in this tweet by ESPN. And for those of you who can't see it, it describes it. It says the logo on James Harden's hat, as Kotaku points out, looks similar to the Black Ops 3 logo with one extra one. Wrong by the standards of Roman numerals, unless you're on old clock. Actually, it's one extra I. So it's 3 Roman numeral I's for Call of Duty Black Ops 3. James Harden is wearing a hat that has 4 Roman numeral I's, leading people to believe that this is going to be Black Ops 4. It says Activision has confirmed that Treyarch is developing this year's Call of Duty game. Since 2010, Treyarch has only worked on Black Ops games, with the last non-Black Ops title being Call of Duty World at War in 2008. It's not a big leap to assume that tradition would continue with Black Ops 4. So we'll see what happens, guys. Mack, I know you're not a Call of Duty guy, and I'm not going to try to convince you to be one, but I think that there's a zombie mode in Call of Duty Black Ops that you might like because it's co-op.
I do like co-op. How much money would I have to drop on the game and the console in order to play it?
They have it for PC, and I honestly wouldn't recommend that you buy a console just for this game. Game is obviously $60. Console is whatever you could get it for. PS4s I think go for $299 right now, maybe even $199. Xboxes, I don't even know the prices right now because I bought both of mine a while back. But if you were to get access to the game, I think that you could get into zombies. You know, I know you like Left 4 Dead. Speaking of which, when's the last time you played some Left 4 Dead, man? Or Left 4 Dead 2?
I would say probably about 3 months ago.
Really? Okay. So that's not too long ago, considering that it's a very old game. I'll never forget when we first met in the city where I used to live, and you invited me to that zombie game night. That was fun, man.
Yeah, it was. It was good times.
That's something that would be cool to do cross-country, but we're both super busy. It's a miracle that we make the time to do this every week, quite frankly.
Well, it's just because we love doing it so much.
It's because it's fun. That's what I'm saying, man. It's a chance to hang out. It's a chance to catch up. Chance to talk to the people. Talk about games. Talk about what we've been doing. It's a great idea. 2 Nerds in a Pod. Best gaming podcast in the galaxy. Next news story comes from GameRant.com. Now, this is a rumor. I'm not always a huge fan of reporting on rumors, although I guess I just did with Call of Duty Black Ops 4. But here's another story. It says, supposed industry insider and video game news leaker Marcus Sellers has been making headlines for a couple of bold claims he made on Twitter today. One claim was that Nintendo would be hosting a Nintendo Direct presentation on Thursday, March 8th. The other was that Sony sent PlayStation 5 dev kits to third-party game developers early this year. Sellers didn't provide any kind of evidence or source for how he obtained this information, so his claims should be taken as nothing more than rumors for now. However, Sellers does have a reputation for accurately leaking video game news, and while he's wrong about some things, he is right about oddly specific details. For example, Sellers is the one who originally leaked the existence of Call of Duty Black Ops 4 and its supposed Switch port, and now more evidence has cropped up in support of that claim. Sellers is also the one who revealed that Metroid Prime 4 was being co-developed by Nintendo and Bandai Namco, a claim that has since been corroborated by sources close to the project to Eurogamer. So, Mack, it sounds like people already have PS5 dev kits. Let's hypothesize a little bit.
Okay.
When do we see the next generation of consoles? PS4, I believe, came out in 2014, and Xbox One came out shortly after. So we're now 4 years in, almost 5 years in. When do we get new consoles, man?
I think historically, haven't we had about a 4-year period of time from when we have release to an update? Hasn't 4 years been about the industry standard?
Generally, yeah, 5, I'd say. But I believe that the PS3 and the Xbox 360 were exceptions. They lasted about 8 years until the PS4 and Xbox One came out. So, I don't know. I mean, just because people have dev kits doesn't mean that the console is coming out soon, because the reality is that it takes a couple years to make a game, at least a good game. So, if let's say they just got the PS5 development kits and they're working on games and learning the new software and all this, we could still be 3-4 years away from a new console. The other thing that leads me to believe we still have a wait is we know that The Last of Us 2 is in development. We know that Detroit Become Human is in development. There's a ton of PS4 exclusives that are set to come out. And if the PS5 was really that close, I strongly believe that they would just hold those games off and make them launch titles for the PS5. So I think we have a ways to go. I would say 2021 at the earliest, but we will have to wait and see. Let us know in the chat what you think about when we get these new consoles. Let's talk a little bit more about some PS4 news, and then we will end the gaming news. This is our last news story, so it's also from GameSpot. It says, an upcoming Bloodborne community event is aiming to repopulate its online space just in time for the game's inclusion as a PlayStation Plus freebie. So, to stop reading for a minute, for those of you who didn't know, this month, PS Plus games are fantastic for PS4. You get Bloodborne, one of the best PS4 games ever made. You also get Ratchet & Clank, which is a game I've been wanting to play for a while with the kids. I loved Ratchet & Clank back in the day. Super hyped for that. Back to the article. It says, the Return of Yaman event is being organized by players to revisit and cause a spike in Bloodborne online activity, in part to make it a more welcoming place for new players. The Bloodborne subreddit plans to launch the event starting on March 10th and running through roughly March 24th. The plan calls for dedicated veterans to create a new character, engage heavily in co-op missions, and defeat players in PvP to create new Bell Maidens in less populated areas. So I don't know all that terminology because I have not played Bloodborne, but here's the gist of it, Mac. This is a game that came out a few years ago. It's now a free game on PlayStation Plus. Veteran players are going to go into the game, play it, and help out with co-op missions, create a new character, and just kind of repopulate the game, man. What are your thoughts on this? Just general thoughts on this type of event.
Honestly, I have never experienced one of these events before, so I don't have much of a conception in my brain of what on earth is going on.
No, that's totally cool, man.
Most of what you said was just like whoosh, straight over my head.
No, you're okay. So I think it's cool. One of my frustrations with some games, particularly on the Xbox 360, was that they required you to do things with a group of players in order to get achievements, or even just to be able.
Raids had to be done, right?
What's that?
So like you're talking about raids, right?
Sure, raids, or even just, defeat such and such boss in a squad, which I guess would be a raid. That's a bad example. Just various things, create a squad and make sure no one in your squad of 4 people dies during this mission, that type of thing. But if the game, because I got to the Xbox 360 party late, some of the games that I played were not populated with online players, and so it made it hard for me to get those achievements and just generally to fully enjoy the game. So what these people are doing is they're saying, hey, we know that PlayStation made this game free. We also know that a lot of the activities require multiple people to complete. we're veterans. We loved this game when it was hot. Let's go make this game hot again by playing it again, increasing the size of the community, and helping out these new players. That's what they're doing. I think it's fantastic. Anytime an old game can have new life breathed into it, I think it's a great thing, especially when a remaster is not required to do so. That has been our news for the week. Mac, I'll turn it over to you, buddy.
All right. Well, Mr. Nice Guy, thanks for telling us a little bit about what's going on today. I want to talk for a moment about what went on today or the past week or so in years that went before. And Mr. Nice Guy, I've got some really heavy hitters today.
Ooh, I'm excited.
I've only got two, but they're two fantastic games. So the first one came out in 2001 for the Nintendo 64. That would have been Conker's Bad Fur Day. Now, Mr. Nice Guy, was this a game that you ever had much experience with?
No, I heard about it, though, and I never got to play it.
Okay, so let me set the stage, because this game was really interesting for me. As we know, Maction did not have a Nintendo 64. Rather, I kind of had to leech off of the Nintendo 64s of the people around me. And with Conker's Bad Fur Day, it was, shall we say, it was a little crude. The game is a little crude by many parents' sort of estimations. And Mr. Nice Guy, you have had the pleasure of interacting with my parents before.
Yeah, great people. Mac's parents are awesome.
I'm quite fond of them myself. I mean, it's I've grown attached, really. But I think it would be accurate to say that my father and mother, especially my dad, are a little bit... well, this is not a game that they would have purchased for me. I believe one person, Galvatron here, who's with us in the chat right now, mentions one boss known as the Great Mighty Pooh. That is a boss that you fight. Among other things, Conker does many things and interacts with many people that my parents would have disapproved of interacting with inside of a video game. So for this reason, I actually benefited from not having a Nintendo 64, as I experienced this game at friends' houses. So what we did most of the time, though, was we played the multiplayer, which the multiplayer had a lot of really cool things. You could do these capture the flag bits. You could do these sorts of storm the beaches of Squirrel Normandy. Lots of really kind of fun
Normandy,
things.
I like it.
Oh yeah, there's definitely this sort of World War II section of the game. The game has sort of these distinct chapters in it where it's like, oh, you're in this setting, and now you're in that setting, and then the last two, if I recall properly, was you had a sort of World War II setting, and then you had a total Matrix setting. You know, Matrix with Neo and Trinity and all that. And then I suppose technically the very last setting was definitely a sort of Alien parody. But, you know, well. The point being is that Conker's Bad Fur Day in a lot of ways is kind of what I think of when I think of, you know, my early high school years. It was just kind of a big deal around that time for me.
Sure.
So the next one that I had ready to mention was Civilization 2. So this one came out a little bit before Conker's Bad Fur Day, and this was a game that I actually didn't get a hold of until much later, when I had another friend who invited me over, because Civilization 2 came out in 1996. A friend would invite me over, and we would play Civilization 2 over his LAN connection, his local area network.
Yep.
But Civilization 2 was a game that I fell in love with so much that I continued to play it for years and years. And as a matter of fact, I even blew off a final once in order to beat a game of Civilization 2. Now, in my defense, I was doing fine in the class, and even getting a 0 on the final, I still think I got like a B in the class.
That's how you do it.
But it was one of those things where, here I was playing Civilization 2, and I thought, you know what? I could go and take the final. Or I could give these Byzantines what they've got coming to them. And so I stayed around to destroy their civilization. For reasons like this, there are certain categories of games that Mack does not play anymore when he knows that he has other obligations that he needs to see to. But Civilization 2 in 1996 conquers Bad Fur Day in 2001. Just some fantastic games to come out at the end of February, beginning of March in years past. But I'm sorry I picked ones that weren't very much in your wheelhouse, Mr.
Dude,
Nice Guy.
It's all good. They're influential games. They're a part of our history as gamers. It's all good, man. Don't even worry about it.
Well, thanks. You're very kind, Mr. Nice Guy. I appreciate that. And yeah, that's what I had for gaming history for today.
Sweet. Well, ladies and gentlemen, it is time for our next segment, which is our topic of the week. A segment where we talk about something that's going on in gaming right now, how it affects us, and what we think about it. And this week's topic of the week comes from GameInformer.com. It says the state of Washington has become the first state in the U.S. to pass a law protecting net neutrality. The FCC, led by Chairman Ajit Pai, voted 3-2 along party lines to remove the Obama-era regulation that prevented internet providers from it's supposed to say treating, I think, content unevenly. Under current rules, internet providers cannot charge extra fees to work around any blocks or limitations of internet content they impose. The regulation is currently set to dissolve completely on April 23rd, but Washington is looking to protect its residents from that dissolution. The state legislature, I'm not going to read this whole thing. But here's what the text of the bill says. It says, quote, a person engaged in the provision of broadband internet access service in Washington state may not block unlawful content, applications, services, or non-harmful devices, subject to network management, impair or degrade lawful internet traffic, or engage in paid prioritization. The bill has been signed into law by Governor Jay Inslee and goes into effect in 90 days, June 6th, or whenever net neutrality rules dissolve. While Washington is the first state to pass a law concerning network neutrality, California, New York, and Massachusetts also have bills that would provide similar protections. Mac, it seems like local rules are trumping federal rules, man. Now, we don't have to discuss the legality too much, but what do you think, man? Is this going to become a trend? Are we going to see net neutrality continue because of states' attempts?
Well, one thing I do have to mention is that in the repeal of net neutrality that Ajit Pai oversaw, I do believe there was a specific, explicit denial of a state's ability to rule or to do something exactly what Washington State and California and other states are doing right now, which is going to be interesting. But I'll just leave that there for as a side note. But I would love to see more states do this. I would love to see almost every state in the United States pass something similar to this, just if for no other reason to, on the one hand, force the issue, but also because I think not until we start having issues are people really going to start seeing just how bad of an idea it is for the paid prioritization, frankly. But anyway, I'm sorry, Mr. Nice Guy, what was the question again?
That was pretty much the question, man. I just wanted to hear your opinion. Now, here's the thing about net neutrality. Mm-hmm. In a sense, net neutrality kind of, they were already kind of trying to find a way around it. Internet companies were, because they throttle you after you use a certain amount of data. I'm sure you're familiar with this, Mac. So, one thing that's in the small print of a lot of internet contracts is, after you use 100 gigabytes of data, let's say, in a month period, they will slow down your speeds meaning that you won't be able to use the internet as quickly. And so they're effectively punishing people who, one, use the internet a lot, or two, use it in large quantities. So those who are downloading a lot of things, those who are doing a lot of streaming of things like Netflix and Twitch and YouTube and Hulu and Amazon Prime and other things like that. Those who are doing a lot of online gaming, those who podcast and upload the episodes. People like us, Mac, we're effectively being punished already. So do you think that Washington State's law will affect prioritization in that sense?
Well, I think on the one hand, one thing that is important to keep in mind is that while we do certainly have plenty of throttling when it comes to cell phone towers, there hasn't been much of an issue or all that much throttling, or at least they've tried to be more sly about it than obvious about it when it comes to your internet, like the internet that comes to your house, the Wi-Fi connection that you have at home. You don't have to be that worried about throttling on your internet connection at home, unless of course things work very differently in Chicago than they do in the Western United States.
They work the same way here, man.
Okay, good. But of course, and I feel a little bit of a certain way about. I don't feel quite as strongly about the throttling and such that occurs on cell towers.
Really?
Yeah, precisely because we have the other option, or we had the other option, where it's like, let's connect, even if it's my phone, let's connect it to the Wi-Fi, let's connect it to the internet and get stuff done, and get the stuff done that we want or need to. But when time comes, if that's not an option anymore, then I feel like it's a bigger problem. But in the old way, that part didn't really bother me. Throttling of data on cell signals didn't really bother me. It still doesn't really bother me.
Okay, I get your perspective. Here's what I'll end on as far as this topic of the week about net neutrality. It just goes to show that if you write to your representatives, change really can happen. So if you're against net neutrality, I would strongly encourage you to call your local leaders, your local political leaders, and let them know that you're against it. Clearly, Washington, Massachusetts, California, and New York are making strides in trying to prevent net neutrality from going away. And I think that's something that we all want, unless you want to pay more money to watch us stream every week. So that's our topic of the week, and I'll give it back over to Mac. Go ahead, Mac. I stuttered.
Right.
Go ahead, Mac. That's what I was trying to say.
No worries. Well, this next little bit, we always like, or at least I always like, to point out some crowdfunding projects that are going on that might bear some really neat fruit. Sometimes we talk about video games. Well, often we talk about video games, in which case I tend to give my usual prognostications and talk about how I need a playable demo to be satisfied. And sometimes we do something that's kind of video game related, like as in today's situation. But with all of these, we will ask for you who are here with us live to give your own vote, whether or not you think this should be kick-started because it's a good project, or you think it should be kicked to the curb. And so for all of us here during the live, I have gone ahead and put that there. Now, Mr. Nice Guy, let me go ahead and just talk a little bit about this.
Do it.
What we have here is we happen to have a second Kickstarter campaign by the company Third Editions. And what Third Editions did in their first and now are doing again in their second Kickstarter campaign are making books, are making basically these video game books. In this particular situation, they're doing books of Final Fantasy VIII, Dark Souls, and Zelda. Now, these books, they go into a little bit more detail about what exactly is inside of them. Like, for example, the Dark Souls book is specifically about Dark Souls 3. It's 400 pages, it's hardcover, and it covers Dark Souls 3, Bloodborne, and all the DLC, covering primarily things like creation of the game, the universe, the lore behind things, getting back to what we were talking about earlier, Mr. Nice Guy.
Yeah, I was going to say.
In Zelda, it's a history. It's a history specifically there. It's volume 2 talking about Breath of the Wild. And with Final Fantasy VIII, it's more about, the creation of the game, the universe surrounding it. There are excerpts that you can download. They have, of course, this is their second Kickstarter to make these books.
Okay.
And so there's between. I'm tipping my hand a little early, but I feel like being able to download an excerpt of the book and knowing that they've already successfully done one Kickstarter for this sort of thing kind of counts as a playable demo. Their current.
No, you're making an exception on the playable demo rule, Maction.
Their current thing that they're looking at is for deliveries in October. I would have to go back to their previous campaign and see how tight their delivery was to when they said that they'd put it out. But if you're looking for, say, one of those books, let's say you like Final Fantasy VIII and you don't care much about Dark Souls or Breath of the Wild, then you're looking at 25 euros for that, which comes out to $31. Or you want to get two of the books. Yeah, they're hardback. And you want to get two of the books, then put out about $56. All three about $80. And that I do believe includes the shipping. But yeah, so they're looking for an October release. Some of the bits and bobs, when they're talking about they mention these things will have creation, universe, and decryption, and they specifically say that the creation covers things like the development, inspiration, design. As for universe, that'll be lore, story, characters, environments, and decryption is analysis, reflection on the game, and theme/legacy. And for those parts, for those aspects about analysis, reflection, and so on, they're leaning on various video game journalists whose expertise happens to be in those areas to do the stuff on the individual books. So whereas in Final Fantasy VIII, we get that from Remy Lopez, and from Zelda, we get it from Valerie. Ooh, I'm going to mess up that last name, so I just won't say it.
How long until Nintendo tries to put a stop to this?
I'm not entirely sure, Mr. Nice Guy, because honestly, if they wanted to put a stop to it, let me see what the. I'm just going to go back in time real quick. The first run of third edition books was. It looks like. Hang on. It looks like Zelda. Oh, so this is a volume 2 on Zelda, with the Legend of Zelda.
Okay.
Let's see. Dive into this. Yeah. The Dark Souls was about Dark Souls 1 and 2, and Final Fantasy was about Final Fantasy 7. So I kind of think if we were going to be in danger of having Nintendo put a stop to it, they would have put a stop to it with the Volume 1 of the Zelda archive. But my guess is that it's being put out with the Nintendo, at least with a Nintendo's allowance.
Yeah, sounds like it makes sense. Well,
so yeah, poke some holes in it, Mr. Nice Guy.
Man, I don't know, man. It's just it looks like they actually have a pretty solid thing set up here. I don't have a lot of holes to poke in it. My only thing is, I mean, we talked about this earlier. For me to want to read a video game book, because there's so many of them at this point, it has to be about a game that I really, really like. I did really like Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, but not enough to buy a book about it. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And honestly, I just don't see a lot of people. Well, who knows? They already have 776 backers, so obviously there's people who want this. Depending on how they distribute it, because I think it's going to get funded. They have 30 days left, and they need about They've raised $57,000 out of about $74,000. So depending on how they distribute it, this could become a big thing if they can get it in bookstores and not just do it online.
Mm-hmm.
It's not my thing, though. I don't need this, and I don't want it to display it. It just really doesn't interest me. I'd rather be playing a game than reading a book about a game. If I'm going to read a book, it's going to be about something else. So that's my only thing, and that's it.
For my part, I certainly think I like what they're doing here. I really enjoyed Final Fantasy VIII, so I'm thinking that I'll probably, pitch $31 that way to get the Final Fantasy VIII. Not because, and I mean, I get the sort of things, House, I do get where you're coming from with, you can use use Google or check Wikipedia for most of the information, and it's a totally legitimate thing. But I kind of feel like in this instance, I like Final Fantasy VIII enough. It's one of my favorite Final Fantasies that I really would enjoy having the book, having something to hold in my hands, and maybe put out on the coffee table.
That's
so
true.
I
it could
think
be a conversation piece. So I'm with you there.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, I think I'm going to say kickstart it because I enjoyed Final Fantasy VIII, and I think I'd pitch in for it just for that Final Fantasy VIII book myself.
Yeah, here's what I'm gonna say. I'm gonna say. Now, here's the thing. If they were making it about a game that I really liked, then I might be interested. And I'm looking through, and I'm seeing that they have done Metal Gear Solid, they've done Fallout. I think my only holdup is that I'm just not really interested in reading a book about Zelda. I don't play Dark Souls or Final Fantasy. Mm-hmm. So for that reason, I'm just going to have to say... Oh, also, I think it's silly that they have a collector's edition and a classic edition. So for those two reasons, I'm going to have to say kick it to the curb and kick them.
Well, of course, those of you who are here as we're doing this live, we more than welcome your input as to whether you think it should be kicked or kick-started. So let us know in the chat. While Mr. Nice Guy, I pass it back over to you for the next segment.
Sounds good. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, it's time for the main event. It's time for the dummy of the week. A segment of the show where we talk about someone who did something stupid, idiotic, or downright dumb, and I make fun of them. This news story took place in Spokane Valley, Washington. It says we have two stories about Washington today. One about net neutrality, one about people being dumb. It says a Spokane Valley deputy investigating a report of a possible burglary found himself arresting the victim, who reported that he had been burglarized. The deputy learned that the man had actually burglarized a neighboring apartment and was trying to report the items he stole as stolen after the true victim took some of the property back. I'm going to read that again because that's a tongue, not a tongue twister, but that's a little bit complicated. So, the deputy learned that the man had actually burglarized a neighboring apartment and was trying to report the items he stole as stolen after the true victim took some of the property back. On Sunday around 1 p.m., Deputy Jason Petrini responded to a report of theft at an apartment complex in the blah, blah, blah block of Spokane Valley. The initial caller, identified as 46-year-old Jason M. Shantz, stated that he purchased some property from his neighbor before that neighbor went to jail. He explained that his neighbor's girlfriend came over to his apartment and took some of the property he had previously purchased. Now I'm confused. It goes on to say when the deputy arrived, he talked to the neighbor, Shan's accused of theft. She said Shan's tried to break into their apartment a couple of weeks ago, but was caught by her boyfriend who had been in jail for the last few days. She explained that she left her apartment. So, first of all, what's going on in this apartment complex?
Well, apparently there's a lot of into and out of jail.
Yeah, apparently they don't really do a background check or ask you for references to live here. Or maybe they just allow you to use your cellmates as references. I don't know what's going on, but it definitely sounds like a place that I would not want to live. It goes on to say she explained that she left the apartment earlier, and when she returned a few hours later, she noticed several things were missing, including a TV, Xbox, and games. She immediately suspected Chance and went to his apartment. That, you see, and that's if you live in an apartment complex and something gets stolen and you immediately know who did it, you should just move. You know what I mean? Like, if you know what, my TV is missing, my Xbox is missing, I know who did this. The person who is known for doing this type of thing. Then you should get some new neighbors. I'm just saying. It goes on to say, so she went to his apartment. Shands wasn't home, but his daughter answered the door. She confirmed Shands brought a TV and Xbox home earlier that morning. The victim was only able to retrieve her TV at that time. Now, I'm curious how old the daughter is, Mac. I'm not saying you should lie even to protect your father, but who answers the door and then someone says, did your dad bring a TV in here? Yeah, he did. Okay, well, that was mine, so I'm going to come in and get it, and then lets him in. That's crazy. This is a long story. It says, when Deputy Petrini contacted, I'm just going to refer to him as Mr. T. Mr. T said he purchased the TV, Xbox, and other items from his neighbor for $100.
Careful, right, Deputy T pities the fool.
I know, he pities the fool. He said he'd already sold the Xbox to David for $25. Deputy Petrini made a call to Geiger Correction Center to confirm with the neighbor that he sold the items to Mr. T, which he adamantly denied. He also told Deputy Petrini about catching Mr. T breaking into his apartment and reiterated Mr. T did not have permission to enter his residence or have any of his property. After further investigation and additional questioning, Mr. T admitted he stole the property. I'm just curious how they got him caught in the lie. I wish I could have been there, because all it took was additional questioning. The Xbox games and connection wiring were recovered from Mr. T's apartment after he was arrested. Mr. T was transported and booked, blah, blah, blah. Guys, if you're going to steal something, don't report it stolen. That's crazy. Also, just don't steal. That's our Dummy of the Week. Mac, back over to you, buddy.
All right. Well, as you know, our last official segment of the show is a little thing that we call legalese. And sometimes this revolves around, say, inspiring cases, times where it's changed video games. Sometimes it involves things that may very well be happening, and sometimes it just involves the sort of things that make you scratch your head a little bit. And this is one of the last things. So, Mr. Nice Guy, I'm just going to take us back in our minds real quick to the month of, I believe it was July of last year.
Let's do
wherein every single legalese was dedicated to one man, one very singular individual, a fellow by the name of Jack Thompson. A lawyer who was basically instrumental, or perhaps the only one, who would undertake time after time after time the mantle of trying to get video games sued for acts of violence. So, I need to, before I return to this, I need to mention that though Mr. Nice Guy and I, we try to keep things light, we try to keep things happy and lighthearted here.
Yeah.
But this deals with some serious subject matter. So I am going to serious up for just a moment and mention that, of course, on January 23rd, there was that awful, terrible shooting at Marshall High in Florida. And there's a lot of current rhetoric and tumult, and people who are, working to try and change things, some for better, some for maybe even worse, with regard to how gun laws and things are going on in the United States. And I'm not going to focus on that, but I think it's important just to acknowledge that. That just how terrible of a thing that is, precisely so that we can contrast it with just how ridiculous of a human being this Mr. Jack Thompson is. So, a certain political figure, I will not mention that person's name, has been noted as proclaiming that video games were the cause of this horrible, horrible event. In spite of plenty of evidence to the contrary, in spite of plenty of studies that show there is absolutely no link between video games and actual violence being undertaken. And as a matter of fact, there is some reasonable corollaries of video games, even the most violence of the video games that are currently on the market, showing a decrease in physical, in IRL violence. Nonetheless, it is something that gets perpetuated. And, because Mr. Jack Thompson, as we know when we left him in July, was permanently forbidden by the Supreme Court of Florida State from ever practicing law. And of course, they requested for every single state to similarly not permit this man under any circumstances to practice law in their state. That being said, this particular gentleman, Jack Thompson, has offered to pro bono assist with the taking the fight to the video games. So I think the most revealing part of it is, of course, obviously he would have to offer pro bono, because if he didn't do pro bono, he would actually be a lawyer. That's right. And he can't. But I mean, I don't even know how he would ever be permitted into any other courtroom. But according to the Marshall County attorney, Thompson is offering to provide a sworn statement to officials detailing his involvement in representing victims and families of victims in similar school shootings from the past. These all in which he was either ejected from, or they said that it was far too much of a stretch. There is, in one particular reporting of this whole thing, I really appreciated what one of the places said. It was 3 or 4 sort of paragraphs in, but they said Thompson, who was disbarred for life from practicing law by the Supreme Court of Florida, made a name for himself through a series of failed lawsuits that attempted to connect violence in video games with real-world violence. He filed suit or was involved in suits filed on behalf of families in connections with shootings in Tennessee, Alabama, New Mexico, and in the 1997's Heath High School shooting, which took place 40 miles from Marshall High School. All of these cases were either dismissed or withdrawn. So for those of you who missed out in July, that was the punchline to the whole July's bit of legalese, was just that we threw out all these things and we said, but that's okay, because then he got permanently disbarred. So anyway, who knows which way this is going to go. I assume that nobody's really going to want to touch him with a 30-foot pole, or at least I hope not. But nonetheless, he has thrown his hat in the ring into as for being willing, able to just jump in there. He is basically the legal equivalent of an ambulance chaser when it comes to anything with video games. So, or anything that could possibly be video game related. So with any luck, we will not hear any more about this guy, because he's just that ridiculous. But hey, it's a crazy world. Who knows? He might get his chance to be back in court, and maybe this time it'll just be as a witness, rather as a very not expert witness,
or as a defendant. Maybe he'll be there as a defendant.
Maybe someday, but of course, to go back when he was disbarred, if I recall properly, he didn't show up to his disbarring hearing, and then announced that he was just going to go back to practicing law, and told the state bar, "Come at me, bro. You never actually pounded the gavel, so it doesn't count." And I believe that's when the Supreme Court of Florida said, no, just because you didn't show up doesn't mean it didn't happen. So anyway,
didn't happen.
Yes, for those who are here at the live showing, you're right. Jack Thompson, I believe, was the guy who coined the term murder simulator for video games. So yeah. Anyway, that's what I had for legalese. We'll see where this goes. And again, my apologies for any, for us waxing perhaps a little bit too much in levity on such a serious subject. But Jack Thompson is, without question, a ridiculous human being. And that's all that I had for legalese.
Mac laying it on thick with the ridiculous human being. Hashtag ridiculous human being. Thanks for tuning.
Mr. Nice Guy, I yes, maybe laying it on a touch thick, but I mean, my background is in chemistry, right? You can't get away with things like, you go to a social science, you're going to need certain values of correlation in your studies of a certain threshold, right, for it to be considered. And in the social sciences, because there's a lot more moving parts, the standard of, the correlation standards are lower because there's so many more influencing factors. But in chemistry, it's pretty high. So I'm saying I've got a high standard, right? But I understand there are lower standards when we're not just doing stuff inside of test tubes, when we're not using XRF or HPLC or ICP-MS.
Yeah.
These are all things where it's like there's a high standard. But I get that, with humans, it's messy. But when it's so over the top and ridiculous, the attempts to try and stretch and connect things.
Human being.
I just, and somebody who continues to crusade on it in spite of all the evidence pointing to the contrary, I just have to say ridiculous.
I understand. Well, hey, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, thank you for tuning in to episode number 61 of Two Nerds in a Pod. We're not done yet. We got one more segment, and before we go, we like to do one last segment called What We've Been Watching and What We've Been Playing, where we talk about just that, what we've been watching and what we've been playing. And also, it's an interactive segment just like all the rest of them. So you let us know in the chat the cool stuff you have been watching and playing. Mac and I are always looking for cool, nerdy stuff to watch and play. Mac, you want to get us started today?
Absolutely. So I haven't been watching too frightfully much. I've just been exhausted lately. But Mrs. the Mac and I did get the chance to watch through all the current seasons of Crazy Ex-Girlfriend, which turned out to be quite fun. A little bit of Ally McBeal meets Flight of the Conchords. So fun stuff there.
I was just going to ask you for an elevator pitch as to what that show is, because I've never heard of it, and you did it in 3 words, so cool.
Yeah, well, and that is actually the elevator pitch that they used when they pitched making the show in the first place. So I can't take credit for that.
Ally McBeal meets what?
Flight of the Conchords.
Interesting.
And then as for what games I've been playing a little bit of Dead Cells. Which is still in alpha, I believe, or no, it's in beta now. But it's got a difficulty curve problem, in my opinion, but that's just me. And yeah, I think that's kind of everything from me. What about you, Mr. Nice Guy?
So, like you, I haven't been watching and playing a ton, but dude, I love this show Suits that I've been watching, man. It's such a good show. I've told you guys about it before. It is the legal, this kid has a photographic memory, and he has never been to Harvard Law, but he gets hired on by a firm who hires strictly from Harvard by using his photographic memory to practice the law. So that's the premise of the show. It is amazing. It's a great show. Very entertaining. What else have I been watching? That's it. I did watch a couple episodes of Walking Dead. I've been watching NBA. I love my basketball, man. James Harden. The other day, Mac, I don't know if you know what a crossover is. Not a crossover where characters from one superhero show.
Oh, you mean you cross it behind your back? Yeah, I saw that gif.
You did? The one of James Harden?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so he was shaking. He was baking. He shook Wesley Johnson out of his sneakers. I'm using some basketball terminology. And Wesley Johnson fell down. He stared at him for 3 seconds and then drained the three. So it was very entertaining. That's what I've been watching. As far as what I've been playing, what have I been playing, man? I've been playing a lot of PUBG and Fortnite. This weekend I got a lot of Fortnite in. And that's pretty much it. I haven't had time to play this bad boy right here, Monster Hunter World, and I feel guilty because it's amazing. Mac, you ever have a game where you're like, I want to play this game, but I'm just not in the mood? You ever felt like that?
Yeah, I felt like that.
And it's such a good game. Like, it's literally probably going to win Game of the Year, in my opinion. My vote, anyway. But I just don't want to come down and play it. I just want to, do other things. So that's what I've been watching and playing. Mac, do you want to check out the chat and see what the people have been into?
Absolutely. So for what people have been watching, our show is among them. Woohoo!
Two Nerds in a Pod.
We've got Thor Ragnarok, Altered Carbon, Mute on Netflix, although neither are very good apparently. Mr. Robot on Amazon Video. We've got Homeland, American Crime Story, and let's see, for games that people have been playing, I'm seeing some yes, I'm seeing some Dead Cells. Polywalk's playing some Dead Cells as well, and Iron Maiden. We've got some BioShock, Horizon Zero Dawn, and Super Mario Odyssey. So, and Red Dead Redemption 2. So, sweet.
You have not been playing Red Dead Redemption 2. That game is not out yet.
Oh, and I guess 911 is a show on Fox. So I haven't seen that before.
Have you ever seen Reno 911, Mac?
I've heard of it, have not seen it.
It's pretty dang funny. Well, anyway, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. Were there more things that people have said in the chat they've been watching and playing?
Nope, that's what we've got. Although an amendment as Red Dead Redemption 2, not so much what's been playing, but what will be Game of the Year. Although, as we have discussed in previous shows, you need not actually have won any awards to both declare yourself Game of the Year and release a Game of the Year edition.
That's exactly right. Also, Red Dead Redemption 2 has been delayed and may not come out this year. You never know. Have you seen Reno 911 House? I know we're getting off topic, but I'm curious. Well, cool, guys. Let's keep it moving. That has been our show. Episode number 61 is a wrap. Now, for those of you who are here that are here for the first time, I want you to know we do this every week at 9 o'clock. I forgot the time zone. 9 o'clock Central 8 p.m. Mountain here on twitch.tv/2nerdsinapod. Also, we are on iTunes, and we could use some more ratings and subscribers, so please go check us out there, 2 Nerds in a Pod with an exclamation point on iTunes. Leave a rating if you like it. Mac, I say we say bye to the people. We'll be back next week. Same bat place, same bat time, same bat rhymes. Keep it nerdy. Deuces.